This is gonna be a good one. Load your bowl, roll something up, or take a motherfucking dab. So Onision recently released a video talking about how him and his wife broke up with their girlfriend, and apparently the main reason they broke up is because Billie was continually smoking weed, even though Onision and his wife Lanybot repeatedly asked her not to. So I wanted to make a response video to some of Onision's claims. Now before you guys go stirring the pot, this is not a hate video. I actually watch Onision quite often and I'm a fan, but just because you're a fan or a friend of somebody doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that they believe in. Sometimes people are going to disagree. So again, this is not a hate video, this is just business. Also, before I start guys, this is going to be a rather long video because I don't like to take people out of context. So a lot of the clips from Onision's video will be rather lengthy, and you're basically going to see the whole video because I didn't want to be accused of taking someone out of context, because that's what pussies do. Now let's go.
Hello, I'm hoping to have a decently productive conversation, one way, unfortunately, about marijuana and relationships. Both my wife and I have been in relationships in the past where we were against marijuana use and they were pro marijuana use. Where they would smoke pot, we would get upset by it. And in many situations, we would break up with those individuals. And a lot of you may think, what's wrong with pot? Pot's not a big deal. That's what a lot of people say, and in many ways, that's true. Pot, from multiple perspectives, could be accurately perceived as pretty harmless.
Okay, so first of all, he kind of clears the air and lets everybody know he's not necessarily anti-marijuana. However, it's everything that you're saying around that kind of makes it seem like you are anti-marijuana. My first issue here on Onision is if you knew someone was a pot smoker and you knew that you and your wife did not like that lifestyle, then why would you jump into a relationship with them to begin with?
But to focus on that is missing the point. If someone says in a relationship that I don't want you to ride a certain brand of bikes anymore, or I don't want you to drink a certain kind of juice anymore, because from my perspective, it harms our relationship for some reason, or it does something else that's destructive.
Okay, first of all, those are terrible fucking analogies, bro. Bicycles and juice, that was fucking terrible. Also, if I was in a relationship with someone and they asked me to stop doing a particular behavior that they knew I liked to do, I would probably tell them to fuck off. I would probably perceive that behavior as controlling, and I would also perceive it that that person did not like me for who I was, and was potentially trying to change me into someone that they wanted me to be. But let's continue.
If someone says this, you're probably not going to care, especially if your relationship is on the line. If I'm supposed to give up a certain brand of something because it's too expensive for us to afford, or because it hurts my significant other's feelings, or just makes them uncomfortable, I don't care. It's fine. There are other ways to enjoy bikes, other brands. There are other juices to enjoy. But with pot, it seems like people are unwilling to compromise. And a lot of people are willing to lie about it for the sake of continuing to use pot.
Well, first of all, I don't think you want that person moving on to other juices. I'm pretty fucking sure those other juices are going to be a lot worse than marijuana. Also, the reason that people are probably lying on Onision is because you're putting them in a situation where they feel as if they need to lie. This is obviously a behavior that Billie enjoyed before meeting you guys, and a behavior that she still continues to enjoy. Something that she may be working towards quitting, however has not yet. And the fact that you and Lainey interrogate her about this, probably often, leads her to lie to you guys.
One of the first meaningful relationships in my life, I asked this girl not to smoke pot because it made her different than how I preferred. I liked her personality exactly the way it was. I didn't want her to be chill or whatever. I just wanted her to be in her natural state. I would have felt the same way about head meds.
Again, Onision, if you didn't like this girl when she was high, then you didn't like her for who she was. This girl that you're talking about in one of your previous relationships, you said used weed before you met her. You then asked her to stop because you didn't like how she was when she used weed. I feel like the part that you're missing is the fact that her using weed is part of her personality and who she is. When we grow up a lot, we like to fantasize in relationships. We like to focus on the things we like about people and try to block out the things that we don't like. When we do this, we create a fantasy version of this person in our minds. This is the person that we hold on to, even though red flags may be popping up all over the place, showing us that us and this person are not compatible.
But I still felt a life without drugs, a life where you're trying to deal with your issues head on without any chemical influence. If it's possible, you should do it.
Okay, so you guys know I'm not biased, so I'm going to give Onision credit here. I do agree with this statement. I do believe that a drug-free, straight-edge lifestyle is probably best. Anytime that you can get over anything on your own without any chemical help is probably best. But as you guys see here, he starts using the word drug, and you're going to hear this a lot. He refers to marijuana as a drug several times throughout this video in an attempt to demonize marijuana. And we all know now that marijuana is nothing like the drugs that we're grown up believing that it's like.
So we'd break up with these individuals. Not so much because they did pot, but because they would lie to us about it, and because they would show that they clearly prioritize pot more than us.
So this is where the video could have ended. You made your point right here. It wasn't about marijuana. You weren't happy with these people because they were continually lying to you. They could have been doing anything else other than marijuana. It's the fact that they lied to you. And the whole reason I'm making this response video is because you tried to make it about the marijuana. Yeah, a few times you said marijuana's not bad, and you just said it wasn't necessarily the weed. But everything else you said around that implies that it was because of marijuana. And because marijuana is some dangerous drug that changes people into unflattering versions of themselves.
Now, if someone tells me not to ride that certain brand of bike, or they tell me not to drink that certain juice, and they say that they'll break up with me if I do, I don't have to understand why, and they could explain themselves, which would be great. But if they just say it really hurts my feelings or makes me uncomfortable or whatever, fine. I love you. I'm going to stop riding that goddamn bike brand. I'm going to stop drinking that certain kind of juice because it's not so important to me that I'm going to destroy a relationship. And yes, you are also risking destroying a relationship by saying you're going to break up with me if I use these things.
I appreciate you covering your bases, because that's exactly what I was going to say. By telling someone if they don't stop a certain behavior that you'll break up with them, you are potentially risking ruining your relationship just by that statement. Also, this sounds very manipulative and by definition is fucking blackmail. A few years ago, I would have agreed with you 100% Onision. However, as I get older and I grow and mature, I realize that you should never ask someone that you're with to change to be with you. Because from the very beginning, that shows that you two are incompatible. And to ask someone to change means to ask them to become a different version of themselves. Which means that you guys probably aren't right for each other.
But people would repeatedly prioritize both my wife and I after they prioritized pot. They would go get high, and then they would act like it never happened. And maybe some cases, people tell the truth eventually. But the point is that they initially prioritized a substance over human beings.
So here we go again with him using the word substance. This is just another attempt to demonize marijuana and make it sound like the fucking devil. In my opinion, Onision, the fact that these people did this behind your back and then came back to you and later told the truth proves that they actually did care for you and were trying to spare your feelings, or potentially spare an argument from occurring, which it sounds like every time they use these drugs, you guys had an argument. Fight or flight. People are either gonna fight or they're gonna run.
Relationships shouldn't necessarily be about one person telling another person what they can and can't do.
And here you go again with the logic. Again, you know this, so what is the whole point of this video?
It should be about that person automatically doing what comes naturally to them, and the other person being okay with it because they're truly compatible.
And Billie was doing what came natural to her, and you should be okay with that because the two of you are either compatible or you're not. Once again, we're back to square one. It seems as if you guys weren't compatible to begin with.
Now, I have my problems. My wife has her problems. But those are issues that we can work on. A drug addiction, and when I say addiction, I mean something that you are willing to destroy your relationship over. That is something that should not happen.
So it's an addiction now. First of all, an addiction doesn't have to be to a drug. An addiction can be any behavior. People can be addicted to shopping. People can be addicted to porn. People can be addicted to stealing things because addiction is a disease. This definition was from drugabuse.gov, where it states, addiction is a chronic disease characterized by drug seeking and use that is compulsive or difficult to control despite harmful consequences. The initial decision to take drugs is voluntary for most people. But repeated drug use can lead to brain changes that challenge an addicted person's self-control and interfere with their ability to resist intense urges to take drugs. These brain changes can be persistent, which is why drug addiction is considered a relapsing disease. People in recovery from drug use disorders are at an increased risk for returning to the drug even after years of not taking the drug. It is common for a person to relapse.
You should be in a relationship with somebody who does drugs like you do. You should be in a relationship with someone who's okay with that behavior.
Again with the dismissive bullshit. Really, Onision, you're way more intelligent and way better than this. I understand your feelings may be hurt right now because you had love for Billie, but this seems kind of low in my opinion.
Criminals, if it's a crime to do whatever drug you're doing, should be with other criminals. And people who do not commit crimes should be with people who do not commit crimes.
So we've heard drug, we've heard substance, and now we're referring to people that use pot as criminals. Anything in an attempt to demonize marijuana.
Why? Because we deserve who we are. We deserve to be with people like ourselves.
Once again, another attempt to throw Billie under the bus and make weed smokers sound like they're some type of inferior class. This is like reverse slave morality. Onision's trying to make it seem as if him and Lainey are better than Billie because they don't use drugs.
And yes, sometimes you can be attracted to someone so much, or you could bond with someone so much that you want to make it work out regardless. But you're setting yourself up for failure, considering the fact that you have this conflict that seems to be irreparable.
Again, you flip-flop throughout the video. You know that this relationship is not going to work. From the very beginning, you knew this relationship was not going to work. In my opinion, it's actually very childish to continue to try to make this relationship work. As I said before, as I get older and more mature, I start to realize from the very beginning if someone and I are compatible or not. And I'm not going to waste my time and hurt my feelings and potentially that person's feelings, all for a little bit of a high for a short period of time. It's funny because you speak of her being addicted to marijuana, but it seems to me, Onision, that you were actually addicted to this relationship. And your addictive behavior caused you to continue to want this relationship even when you knew it was not good for you.
So what I'm saying in this video is not that pot is absolutely horrible and everyone who does pot are terrible people. A lot of my family members who I love smoke pot, and it's legal in my state, so they're not criminals. What I'm saying in this video is that if you're with somebody who smokes pot, despite you asking them not to smoke pot, you probably deserve to be with somebody who's willing to love you more than a drug.
Once again, I feel like you're letting your emotions get in the way, Onision. This sounds like a very, very selfish statement in my opinion. If Billie was someone you loved, who as you said, not me, has an addiction to marijuana, and as I highlighted before, addiction being a disease, why would you not stay and help the person that you love overcome their disease, rather than leave them in the cold because it's just too hard for you and your feelings?
And to that pot smoker, you should probably be with somebody who loves to smoke drugs like you do. Because that way you can go on smoking pot the rest of your life, blowing money on drugs, without anyone telling you not to do what you're obviously addicted to doing.
Here we go again. You should be with someone who smokes drugs like you. Once again, this entire video sounds extremely bitter, Onision. Marijuana is not a drug like you're trying to make it sound. And if you thought that Billie was such a drug addict and a bad person that wanted to hang around druggies, then why would you continually welcome her into your home with open arms and into your relationship, only to publicly crucify and humiliate her in front of the world? In my opinion, you let your emotions override your logic in this situation, and I truly hope that you remove the video.
And I say you're addicted because with all of my experience, I've seen person after person after person swear up and down that they don't want to do pot, or that they won't do pot, And yet those people just keep going back again and again, smoking pot. They say, I can quit anytime, and then they wind up smoking it again. Actions speak louder than words. It is my firm position that pot is addictive, just like porn is addictive. Something that you say you can quit or will quit, but wind up doing again and again, is probably something you're addicted to.
Let me read that definition one more time for you. Addiction is a chronic disease characterized by drug seeking and use that is compulsive or difficult to control despite harmful consequences. It is common for a person to relapse.
Again, not my position that pot smokers are all terrible people. They're not. Many pot smokers are awesome people. But it is my position that people who do not smoke pot, who have a problem with people who smoke pot, should not be in relationships with people who smoke pot.
Once again, this is just another common sense statement, which proves that this entire video was completely unnecessary. If you wanted to keep your fans up to date as to what was happening, you could have very easily made another video saying that you and Lainey broke up with Billie. You could have possibly just spared the details, or just said that the three of you were not compatible, or that there was some form of dishonesty in the relationship. But to go on and make a damn near 10-minute video, basically throwing Billie and marijuana under the bus, in my opinion seems like some sort of retaliation, or an attempt to hurt Billie mentally and emotionally and try to defame her.
Anyway, that's why I have a problem with pot. It's because people prioritize pot, specifically pot smokers, over other human beings. And no drug should be more important than your significant other. And yet, based on my previous experiences and my wife's previous experiences, so many pot smokers, in fact, 100% of the pot smokers that we've dated, have prioritized those drugs over their loved ones.
What did you just fucking say, Onision? You said 100% of the pot smokers that you and Lainey have dated. Let me say that one more time. You said 100% of the pot smokers that you and Lainey have dated. They were fucking pot smokers already. They were pot smokers before your relationship. So to try to shame them now is completely classless and not a desirable character trait. Now with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get the fuck out of here. Like I said in the beginning of the video, this is not a hate video and I do not hate Onision. I'm actually still open for a collaboration at some point in the future. Because as an adult, I realize that you don't have to agree with people 100%. And as a fellow artist and creator, I know that sometimes our minds aren't wrapped too fucking tight. But man to man, YouTuber to YouTuber, Onision, take down the video, bro. It doesn't show you in the most positive light, kind of looks a little bitter, and I know that you and Lainey still greatly care for Billie, and this could potentially put a huge rift in communications between the three of you. Now I'm about to go take a dab. We out, bitch!